Hi, I'm Rhett Crabtree, and this is the first of 4 5-minute theology videos on the subject of liturgy. Today, what is liturgy and why does it matter? An introduction to liturgy. Well, whether you're aware of it or not, churches are supposed to be liturgical spaces, especially as the people of God gather for Lord's Day worship. Peter Leithart puts it this way: liturgical spaces are spaces where the world is ordered as it ought to be, where everything is being devoted to its ultimate purpose, which is praise to God. Close quote. Well, that's some story, Pee-wee, but what is liturgy in the first place? Well, the word liturgy comes from the Greek, and it's defined as the, quote, service of the people to God, obviously. Far from being a dirty word, as some Protestants sometimes tend to think of it, it's not. Neither is it a Roman Catholic word. Liturgy is a biblical word, and so all Christians are free to use it. I'll be using it primarily here as a synonym for the church's order of worship. When we find this word in the Greek New Testament, it's usually not translated into English as liturgy, but instead as worship or service. So we could take, for example, Romans 12:1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Note the word service. That's the word liturgy. In other words, Romans 12:1 is commanding us to have a reasonable liturgy. By the way, that word reasonable is also significant because in Greek, it's closely related to the word logos, from which we get logic. So just imagine what the Bible's saying. The Bible's commanding Christians everywhere to have a, quote, logical liturgy. Hear it again. Romans 12:1. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your logical liturgy. Very interesting. Of course, the passage there is speaking in terms of the personal liturgy of the Christian life, how you conduct yourself as a servant of God in this world, in his service, and so on. But the question is it logical? Is it reasonable? Because it needs to be. By the way, notice the interesting implication behind Romans 12:1. The implication is that you already have a liturgy of some kind, right? The verse doesn't instruct you to run out and go get a liturgy from Liturgies and Things down at the shopping mall. No, you've already got one. It's the liturgy of your life, and your job as a Christian is to ensure that that liturgy is a logical liturgy. But in addition to this personal application of this command in Romans 12:1, there's certainly a corporate application too, right? Well, you better believe there is. If the individual Christian is to have a logical liturgy for his life, then the church to which he belongs must also have a logical liturgy for the Lord's Day. Now, at this point, allow me to introduce my Latin friend who will help us see why all this matters. No, I'm not referring to my Latin friend Felix, Julian, or Sebastian. I'm especially not referring to the rudest of all Latins, namely Nautius Maximus, but I am instead referring to an ancient Latin theological maxim, lex orandi, lex credendi. Lex orandi, lex credendi. What does that mean? Well, in English, it simply means the law of prayer is the law of belief. The law of prayer is the law of belief. In other words, the law or the logic that governs a service of prayers, a worship service, that will over time impact what worshipers believe. To put it differently, given time and exposure, the church's Lord's Day liturgy, for good or ill, will shape the personal liturgy of the individual Christian who belongs to that church. If the church's liturgy is sloppy, it communicates sloppy things to the worshiper about God. These sloppy things translate into sloppy beliefs about God, which translate into sloppy behavior, or, as we're calling it here, an illogical liturgy. Now, to illustrate the point, why is it that so many young people these days are fleeing the evangelical ghettos that they grew up in the very moment that they get away from mom and dad? Now, after all, didn't their evangelical churches give them everything? Didn't they give them every possible reason to embrace Christianity? Didn't they give these young people youth groups with casual worship so the kids didn't have to be bored in big people church? And didn't they change their musical style? We'll throw out psalms and hymns. We'll switch to rock performances because, after all, that's what young people want. And didn't these churches transform from houses of worship, from sanctuaries into nightclub-type environments with stage lighting and fog machines and mirror balls so as to make the worship of God more relevant for all the young folks? Didn't these churches do all of this? And the answer is yes. They did all of those things, and that is why the kids left. Because lex orandi, lex credendi. The law of prayer is the law of belief. If your liturgy teaches young people that approaching God is a casual thing, then don't be surprised when those young people casually get up and walk away from God one day. Having a logical liturgy matters in your church. And next time, we'll look at what a logical liturgy actually looks like and how it is filled out. But until then, I'm Rhett Crabtree. This has been an introduction to liturgy. Lord bless you.